Okay. Hey, Doug.
All right, we're on.
All right, I can't hear WWL.
Oh, shoot.
I mean, I can hear you fine, but I can't hear WWL.
Let me get you. All right. Hey, good morning. Sunseri, Albert Nicaud, your weekend lawyers, all things legal. Give us a call at 260-187.
Albert Nicaud, who is about to join us. Albert, are we back?
I'm back. I'm here.
All right. You hear the radio?
I can hear you. I'm not sure if I can hear callers. If not, I'll call in. Sorry about that. I was trying to get my phone.
All right. Happy 4th of July. You heard, first of all, this 4th of July, Declaration of Independence celebration. We're going to have Brian Altabello, who's my history teacher at Del Sal, 10th grade, is going to talk about the significance of the Declaration of Independence. And also, he wrote a book called Whiskey, Women, and War, how the Great War, which was World War I, because they didn't have World War II then. They called it the Great War, shaped Jim Crow New Orleans. And so that ought to be pretty good. Even if you're not a history fan, a lot of people would read a book that called this name Whiskey, Women, and War. What do you think?
I think you're right, and I do think that people need a history lesson. You could probably ask the young people in this country, and 50% of them probably wouldn't know why we celebrated July 4th, why that was a holiday at all.
It would be just a holiday, but we really don't know why.
Yeah, so maybe having a history teacher on today is probably a good idea.
Yeah, and he was a great history teacher. And in fact, when I was at De La Salle, this is about the Declaration of Independence. Our punishment was to write the Declaration of Independence. So if we were being disciplined by Brother Justin, he would tell us, he'd say, you got to write 3 decks, which means you'd have to write 3 declarations of independence, which was part of our punishment. So I got to know the Declaration of Independence pretty well. And so, so I'd have to read it. I wasn't a bad kid. I was just a little Eddie Haskell-ish. So I would just push the envelope a little bit. And then what I got the idea was, being started being an entrepreneur, or trying to be one, is I used to write them. Brian was probably the best teacher I had, along with Mr. Greathouse and Mr. Stavler. But if I had a bad teacher, I was checked out, because I'm like, I can't. It just drives me crazy. So I'd write decks during my class, and I would sell them to other students who got in trouble.
You've always been that entrepreneur. You had lots of ways of making money back in high school and in college, actually.
Yeah, I did. This prescription run. Probably the same way Buddy Diliberto used to make money.
Exactly. He knew the going line. Put it that way.
I knew the line. And,
that's right.
In fact,
whatever game was being.
I still remember the 1983 Denver Green Bay game where we didn't have internet, and when it started snowing like a blizzard, and all the calls started coming in for under on the over under, and I don't think I've recovered since. But
right.
Yeah, as far as the Declaration of Independence, what I did though, and this is my other problem I have, is when Brother Justin gave me 3 decks, I was a smart aleck, so I just pulled them out my little knapsack and gave it to him.
They were pre-written, huh?
They're pre-written, and he didn't like that. So that was the last time I.
Of course, nowadays the copiers are so good, you could probably get away with that. You could
do that. I did get to know. I did get to know the Declaration of Independence pretty well. So we have Brian Altabello. I guess the big news this week in law and sports is NIL.
Yep.
I mean, we're sort of in the Wild West as far as name, image, and likeness. And I think this is undisputed that college football will never be the same again. Never be the same. I don't know, better or for worse or what have you, but it's never going to be the same.
But, listen, we had a caller last week. You guys were out of town. Yeah. We had a caller last week that said, hey, would want to talk about that. Would love for you guys to talk about that on the show next week. And so, of course, we brought that up, and it is a hot topic. And I told him, and I told the audience, I said, I am one of those guys that is a fan of this, not because I want it to happen, but I think legally, I think it should happen. Much like, and I compared it to an 18-year-old drinking alcohol in a bar. There's an 18-year-old kid, just like there's an 18-year-old college student, but you've got an 18-year-old kid who can sign a contract, can be charged as an adult for a crime, can marry, can go to war and serve our country, but they can't go to a bar and have a beer. It's just, it's crazy. It's crazy. And it's been that way. The states have followed suit because they want that federal highway money, et cetera. And, it's just, it's kind of an extortion thing. And actually, I think the proof is kind of in the pudding with respect to that there are probably more accidents as a result of texting while driving than alcohol related in that age group. So same thing holds true. My point is the same things hold true for the name, image, likeness issue we're talking about today. I couldn't play college sports because I couldn't afford to play college sports. I wasn't good enough to, of course they didn't have all the shoe contracts and all that stuff, and I wouldn't have been that player. But I had to work myself through school. I had to pay for my tuition. I had to do this, and even if they gave me free tuition, room and board, I would have had no money to spend. I would have had, I would have had to do something, just to, if I wanted to go have a pizza on the weekend. And these kids are out there giving it their all, and they're there, 4 or 5 hours a day sometimes, especially during the season. They're traveling, they're doing everything else. They should get compensated, especially if the fans are buying their, images or likenesses or their names on the backs of their jerseys. And I mean, it makes sense to me. And,
well, they, for sure, the NCAA overplayed didn't get ahead of the issue. If they would have got them some type of revenue sharing in some form or fashion, it would have never went to court. And I think the NCAA, in its arrogance, made a monumental miscalculation as to what, as to they could not do. It was just a matter of time. The other thing.
So now what, Doug? I mean, I guess the big question is now what? Can they put restrictions on it? And and the other thing I mentioned last week, if they could make it like the NFL, not the NBA, but if they could make it like the NFL, where you have a cap and everybody has the same cap and everybody has the same, playing field, then perhaps they could make it work, and perhaps it would protect the game better. But if a college like UCLA or USC, one of these wealthy colleges, or even some of the Texas colleges with these billions of dollars in reserves, how do you compete against Mississippi State? Now, how does Mississippi State compete against them, or some other small college that doesn't have the enrollment, doesn't have the population buying those jerseys, et cetera?
Well, there's a couple of things you can do. Is, first of all, if you're in LA, it works both ways. You're in the biggest entertainment capital in the nation, but on the other hand, you're a small fish in a big pond. Now, if you go to Athens, Georgia, you go to Starkville, you go to Tuscaloosa, you're it. There's no other game in town.
Yeah.
And so that's one, like our ULL in Lafayette. The ULL players, would be very popular within Lafayette, maybe not outside of Lafayette. But here's the other thing that is unanticipated. What they're going to do is they're figuring out on how to maximize this system in order to get players.
It's recruiting. It's a recruiting tool, sure.
So what they're going to do is, when we used to do endorsement agreements with the NFL and NCAA, PGA, what have you, they used to have guaranteed royalties that you would have to pay for if you license something from that NFL or NCAA. And what they're going to do is, if you're a running back for Alabama, they're going to say some booster is going to guarantee a guaranteed royalty for $200,000 for their image, regardless of whether it's exploited or not, which is a commercially viable practice in this. And so that's what's going to happen. I mean, it's and that's how they're going to lure the big players. And there's going to be other abuses. Think of this. Could you make a player a greeter at a casino?
They kind of do that now, right?
Well, no, not at college players.
I kind of remember a few 7-footers working at our office back in the day.
Right. Well, yeah. Well,
I think a lot of the alumni get involved and give these kids jobs that they don't have to show up to.
Well, Paraloop, the quarterback, he was at a casino. That was one of his problems.
But he wasn't a greeter.
Okay, here's another way to exploit it. Like the Department of Agriculture, they pay a player $100,000 to be their spokesman. You'd have government paying players to be their spokesman because some governments license out or not license out, but they'll have spokesmen for their particular department. You see Coach Ogeron talking about, certain things on behalf of Governor Edwards. So yeah. I'm just telling you, those are rules. They could put reasonable regulations in there. They'll have to put disclosures just like they do for politics. They can do certain reasonable regulations, but if, it's going to be it's a wild west right now, and I think
I wonder how much of this is going to make some of these kids go off the rails.
Well, it makes a lot of 22 and 23-year-olds in the NFL go off the rails.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's these 18, 19-year-old kids. How
you multiply by 10. I back when I was an agent, I had 3 or 4 players. Okay, I had 3 or 4 players who were out the NFL in a year or two because they couldn't handle the money.
Right.
Because they got consumed. They just couldn't handle it. They got away from their mission of being an NFL player. They got distracted.
What was the LSU quarterback? Jamarcus Russell. Same thing. Got this $26 million guaranteed money back, which was a ton of money back then. And
he practiced.
Yeah. And then bought the big house, had his posse all living there, partying all the time, and it was the kiss of death.
That's going to hurt, and that is going to be some of the carnage from this. And so the athletic directors and the coaches going to have to get, they're going to have to figure out how to manage this. And I wouldn't want to manage that because there's nothing more dangerous than giving a couple $100,000 to an 18-year-old kid. So,
right.
All right. Well, let's go to a break. We got Brian Altobello on the line. He's going to talk about the significance of the Declaration of Independence, his new book, Whiskey, Women, and War, right after this brief timeout.
Local news.
I want to know what's going to directly affect me and my community.
Because the news keeps you informed about daily activities, local topics, anything political. I like feel-good stories, crime, sports news, traffic.
Every single one of them.
Your hometown.
I am interested in knowing what's going on in my immediate neighborhood.
People working together, collaborating, doing things for the community. Your stories. I like to keep in touch with what's going on locally, just stories that matter and are interesting. There's something new every day on WWL.
Rick Edelman, award-winning radio host and founder of Edelman Financial Engines, takes questions on his radio show. Let's hear his advice on annuities.
Hey, Rick, I'm looking for a good investment. Should I consider a fixed annuity? Well, fixed annuities aren't really investments, they're insurance products. You'll get a fixed rate of return from them, but it might not be enough to offset taxes and inflation. Most annuity contracts require you to keep the money there for 5 to 10 years, and if you're under age 59 and a half, any withdrawals are subject to a 10% IRS penalty. You should talk, therefore, to a fee-based financial advisor to see if an annuity is right for you, not someone who makes a living earning commissions selling annuities. You want a fiduciary who puts your best interests first.
If you're looking for a trusted partner who's got your back, talk to one of our experienced financial planners by calling 888-PLAN-RICK or visit rickedelman.com.
At Mike Brenner Injury Attorneys, we know that car wrecks don't take the weekends off, and neither do we. If you've been hurt in a wreck over the weekend, don't wait until Monday to get the help you need right now. We have people standing by, ready to take your call, ready to give you free advice, and ready to help you get the medical attention you need. You don't have to wait until Monday to call an attorney. We're the 24/7 injury attorneys, and we're available to get you the help you need right now. Go big! Get right!
Hurt in a wreck, Mike Brenner's the one. Call 345-1111. This year, give her what she really wants. Diamond stud earrings from Oakland Heart. When she sees that Oakland Heart box, she'll know they're the best. What she won't know is that you got the very best price possible. Oakland Heart Jewelers on Metairie Road.
Rejuvenate your mornings with Rejuvame. RejuvameMedical.com.
Have you wanted to speak a new language but thought it'd be too difficult or take too much time? Then try Babbel. Whether you want to learn Spanish for future travel plans, French to connect with extended family, or maybe German to land a new job, Babbel works because it's built around real life. It teaches you everyday practical conversations that you'll actually use. All you need is 15 minutes a day, and you'll be on your way to confidently speaking a new language in just a few weeks. Babbel is designed by real language experts using a modern, conversation-based technique that makes learning fun, engaging, and best of all, memorable. It starts by teaching you words and phrases. Then sentences gradually get more complex. Soon you're practicing short conversations about real-life topics. And with 14 languages to choose from and lesson topics like travel, business, relationships, and more, you'll be sure to learn what matters most to you. Babbel. Language for life. Learn a new language with ease. Go to Babbel.com to try for free. That's Babbel.com. Babbel.com.
All things legal on WWL. Consult with Nicaud and Sunseri now on the Oakland Heart Jewelers Talk and Text line, 504-260-1870. And don't forget to rewind on the Odyssey app.
Hey, we're back. Doug Sunseri, Albert Nicaud, lawyers, all things legal. Today's 4th of July, so we're working 4th of July, and I've got my 10th grade teacher, De La Salle, great history teacher, Brian Altabello, on the line, and I wanted him to tell us about the 4th of July in his new book, Whiskey, Women, and War. And so, good morning, Brian. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me on, Doug. Appreciate it.
Good, good. I wanted to have you, first of all, I want to thank you. You're a fantastic history teacher, and I've gotten feedback since I posted that you were going to be on. A lot of my fellow students that echoed the same thing. So you left a great legacy at De La Salle. But, one of the things I want to talk about is, when we used to teach this class, we used to always ask, what was the significance of a particular event? So one of the things I wanted to do is have you talk a little bit about the Declaration of Independence and its contextual and historical significance at that time.
Yeah, well, it's our birth certificate, of course, and you can't get more significant than that. But I think what I like to convey to people about the Declaration is not only is it, the birth certificate of the country, but it also, I think, demonstrates the bravery and the courage of the 56 men that signed it. Because when they did sign it, there was the war. The war had been going on for a year, by the way. The war began in 1775. A lot of people think that the Declaration is what prompted the beginning of the war. That's not true. The war had been taking place. In fact, there were dozens of skirmishes and battles that occurred before the Declaration was signed. But these men that signed it were signing their death certificate because the outcome of the war was certainly in doubt by 1776. This is well before the French had created the alliance with the United States, and the French were crucial in the American victory. So when they signed it, they knew that if the war did not go their way, they were going to hang. There's no question about it. And so what impresses me always about the Declaration is the bravery of these men.
Now, what was the, I guess as far as the setup of the Declaration of Independence, it actually was not signed on July 4th. It was,
right.
If you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's kind of a trivia question. It was actually approved unanimously in a vote by the Second Continental Congress on the 2nd. But, and this is just a little quirk, it had not been published until 2 days later on the 4th. And the printer's date was on the 4th. And so that's when it was distributed and announced. That is why the 4th has become the Independence Day. So it's a little technical, trivial thing that really is not that important. It's interesting. Another interesting thing that I always like to talk about is that there were actually 4 presidents that have direct connections to the 4th. Three presidents died on the 4th.
Yes.
And Adams and Jefferson both died on the same day on the 4th of July in 1826, which is really interesting, within about 5 hours of each other.
Well, actually,
James Monroe was present.
Actually,
they died on the same day. Yeah.
That was the 50-year anniversary of the Declaration of Independence also.
That's right, exactly. And then, but also Calvin Coolidge was born on the 4th of July. So you had 4 different presidents that were directly connected to that date, either by birth or death.
Now,
so that's kind of another trivia question that it's fun to think about.
Now, Calvin Coolidge was president in the 20s whose famous saying was, "I can't get in trouble for what I don't say."
I don't say, right. Yeah, exactly. That's the guy.
That's the guy. I think President Trump took that advice, huh? So, I'm being facetious for you.
Silent Cal. Right.
What are some of the, I guess, less obvious significant aspects of the Declaration of Independence?
What's interesting is that when the war began, Doug, there was little, if any, interest in independence. When the war began, when Lexington and Concord took place, the country was fighting. And by the way, let me insert this: only about the war for independence was really a civil war, because only about 15 to 20%, we think, of the population in America at the time was in favor of the war or contributed to the revolution itself. A large percentage was indifferent, and then the rest were loyalists who actually helped the British, and either in enlisting in British units or in supporting them through intelligence and so on and so forth. So you had a war within a war. It was a civil war. Not every American, not even a majority, was in favor of the breakup of the colonial breakup.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, important to understand. And then, just how do we evolve from 1775, when the war began, when they were fighting for their rights as Englishmen, to 1776, when they were fighting for independence? Well, there are several things. One of the most important was, if the colonists were to get help from France, which was crucial, they needed France desperately to win this war. And in order to do that, they had to declare independence. They would not have been able to get French help had they remained as part of England. So they had to pronounce the fact that they were an independent country. And then in addition to that, when the British sent over the Hessians, which were mercenaries, that really angered a lot of the colonists and emboldened them to fight more intensely against the British, and enlisted more Americans to fight for independence because they thought that was an insult. And then the publication of Common Sense, Thomas Paine's Common Sense, which also helped to really motivate Americans to fight for independence. That was also important. The Common Sense was a little pamphlet that were carried by many of the Continental Army soldiers, and that just helped to inspire them to fight for independence. And basically what it said was it made sense to fight for independence.
I guess
so those things I think are important to remember.
I guess in the context of the French, the enemy of your enemy is your friend. Is that the relationship with
exactly.
them? And also, too,
Absolutely.
if you could give a little more context to the fact that, let's say you're living in, an urban area, Philadelphia, or maybe especially New York, you really didn't know whether your neighbor was loyal to the British or loyal to the, or to the new country.
Yeah.
And that posed a lot of practical problems on a day-to-day basis.
Absolutely. Well, that's what happens in a civil war. I mean, in any civil war, you're just going to have tremendous amount of mistrust. And then when the war was over, believe me, those people that were identified as the loyalists were vilified, and their property was confiscated, and hundreds and hundreds of loyalists fled to Canada once the war was over to escape punishment from the rebels who looked upon them as traitors. So, it just depends on who won the war. The reverse would have taken place had the Americans lost the war. And certainly, again, those signers of the Declaration would have been strung up.
Let me ask you sort of a question. It's probably not asked too much. What did they have a split back in England as to whether they should just let the colonies go or they should retain them?
That's a great question, and you're right. The Parliament was definitely split, and of course, you could probably guess this, those that were anti-monarchy were the ones that actually supported the rebel cause. And so it was a divide, but they were in a minority, and King George, of course, wanted to pursue the war, and his allies in the Parliament were behind him. But yeah, they were vocal advocates for the rebel cause in Parliament. There's no question about that. Yep.
And Brian, we're gonna take a break. After the break, I want to talk a little bit about your book, Whiskey, Wine, Women, and War. I think we got extra callers who want to know about this just based on the title, or extra listeners. Not your typical name for a history book, but we'll talk about that after the break. We got Brian Altabello, historian, history teacher. Right on. We'll be right back after this brief time out.
When staying informed is non-negotiable,
The
local stuff and being connected is a must.
I can hear. I just got a whistle. It's like a whistle at the end of every word.
One touch away from what you need. No matter where you are, access it whenever I want to be able to do it anywhere. From your home to the office, from the barbecue to the beach. Staying informed this summer is easy with the Odyssey app. I can do it on my phone.
Anywhere at any time.
Download it today and stream WWL anytime.
It's Boat Stuff's in-house boat show today through June 30th at any of Boat Stuff's 4 convenient locations. Build your new 2022 Dream Boat powered by Yamaha Outboards. Get a great deal on all 2022 coastal fishing boats, fiberglass and aluminum boats, including new 2022 Abbott boats, Seafox, Blue Wave, Ranger, and Sea Pro, all powered by Yamaha.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't hear it. I didn't hear it when you and I were talking, but when the guest was talking, I would hear the
in-house boat show in Hammond, Slidell, Harvey, and Port Sulphur for sales, service, and parts.
This is Attorney Doug Sunseri, host of All Things Legal on Sunday mornings.
This is Attorney Michelle Demarest Sunseri. As a result of COVID-19, many are experiencing unique family law difficulties resulting in divorce and custody issues.
Also, we learn the importance of estate planning, wills, and powers of attorney.
At Nicaud and Sunseri Law Firm, we make the complex understandable.
Call me at my Metairie office at 504-837-1304.
Or call me, the boss lady, on the North Shore at my new office in Mandeville at 985-624-9697.
Boss lady, really?
Being in the Army National Guard is about more than serving your country. It's about being there for your community when your neighbors need you most. The Army National Guard makes college affordable, and serving part-time can help you graduate debt-free. Do you want to stay close to friends and family? The Guard allows you to serve close to home.
Serving part-time in the Army National Guard lets you have the life you want. Learn more by visiting nationalguard.com.
Sponsored by the Louisiana Army National Guard. Aired by the Louisiana Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Hey, we get it. You don't want to be hearing a Progressive commercial right now, so let us tell you something you do want to hear. You are intelligent. You make all the right decisions. You were smart before smart was cool, and you made it cool again. You have a wealth of knowledge, and you are so very clever. I bet you already knew I was going to say that, you genius. There, don't you feel better? You'll also feel better when you hear you could save big when you switch to Progressive. But I'm pretty sure you already knew that, too. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
Enjoy a powerful business upgrade with Dell Technologies Black Friday and July event. Get amazing savings with up to 50% off high-performance computers and tech built for business.
Got the last spot coming up after this.
With Windows 10 Pro. Plus, get great offers on Dell servers, monitors, docks, and more. All with easy financing options through Dell Financial Services. Call 877-ASK-DELL. That's 877-ASK-DELL. And speak to a Dell Technologies advisor today.
Her words weren't written under peaceful shade, but under fear for her life.
I don't think of all the misery, but of the beauty that still remains.
The words of Anne Frank continue to fill us with hope. Hope. Pass it on from passiton.com.
All things legal on WWL-AMFM.com and the Odyssey app. Connect with Doug Sunseri and Albert Nicaud on the Oakland Heart Jewelers talk and text line 504-260-1890.
Hey, we're back. Doug Sunseri, Albert Nicaud, your weekend lawyers, all things legal. Got Brian Altobello on the phone. He told us a little bit about the 4th of July, and he's got a new book out, Whiskey, Women, and War, How the Great War, which was World War I, because they didn't have World War II yet, shaped Jim Crow in New Orleans. Brian, why don't you just tell us, first of all, a little bit about the title, because a lot of, that's the title gets me already. So, Whiskey, Women, and War. So, just tell us about how about the book and how you came up with this title.
Yeah, it's a book about what happened in New Orleans during the 2 years of the war, 17 and 18, and I think the most important events that took place as a result of the war, and the war nourished these two events, were the 18th and 19th Amendments, the Prohibition Amendment and the Women's Suffrage Amendment, both of which were passed immediately after the war was over. So that's the reason for the title. It's not a book about the war. It's really a book about the years of the war in New Orleans. And those two amendments were certainly significant amendments. And the war did help to nourish that. Those amendments were going to pass anyway, but there's no question that the war did help to embolden the support for both of those amendments. In terms of the Prohibition Amendment, what the Prohibitionists did was cleverly link patriotism to support for the Prohibition Amendment, because when people thought of beer, particularly, they thought of German beer, and the German breweries in America were widespread, so they linked the two, the villain of Kaiser Wilhelm with beer, and that helped to just bring about support for the Prohibition Amendment. And then the Women's Suffrage Amendment, the 19th Amendment, unquestionably, what women did during World War I was a crucial factor in the passage of that amendment, because they were magnificent. And they did the same kinds of things that we know about with World War II, Rosie the Riveter. That also occurred in World War I. But I think even more importantly in World War I, because it was so different from the eras before, where women began to not only drive cars to help the military effort in moving people around town, they actually became mechanics. Tulane actually had a school for mechanics, and women were made up most of the classes. But they did more than that. They drove the cars, but they also took over jobs like ushers in theaters, for example, which were unheard of, and things of that sort. And then in manufacturing as well. So that played a lot to the support that the amendment received in Louisiana and in New Orleans in particular. So that's where the title comes from.
Now I'm going to ask you a few things that people might not have known about what was going on. Just tell us about the American Protective League that was at that time.
Really interesting. The American Protective League was an unusual organization. It was really it was sanctioned by the Justice Department, and these were men, mostly men, that volunteered for $1 you could join, and you'd get a little badge, and your mission was to assist in the identification and capture of German spies or saboteurs, to help to assist the Justice Department and the Bureau of Investigation, as it was called then, in the identification and capture of these German aliens. It turns out that there weren't many of them around. So in New Orleans, the APL, the American Protective League, agents would go around and they would be given different missions. Once they realized that there wasn't much in the way of spy activity in the city. So the local police force and the local Justice Department agents in New Orleans asked them to help in the arrest of soldiers that violated liquor laws, or prostitutes that were in the city that were servicing the men in uniform, because this was looked upon, obviously, as something that would hurt the combat efficiency of our units, especially because of the possibility of venereal disease. So the APL morphed into this other kind of organization that was missioned by local police to do whatever was needed to help enforce the local laws, not necessarily going after German spies. It was really a group of men that were older, were too old for the draft or to enlist, well-meaning, but really they would do is finger anyone that they thought was not loyal to the American cause, as well as looking after the liquor laws too. So if you didn't stand up quickly enough in the theater when the national anthem played, they would make note of it and forward that notice to their chief, and you were brought in to be investigated. That kind of thing happened. There was a law called the Sedition Act that today would never hold water, but at the time the jurisprudence was not available, and the Sedition Act was passed by Congress and signed by President Wilson, and it basically said that if you in any way demonstrated any kind of criticism of President Wilson or the war effort, you could be brought in and arrested for disloyalty.
We got a couple minutes. I want to ask you about Storyville and Bourbon Street during Prohibition, which is unimaginable. Well, Bourbon Street, and it's without alcohol. Today is unimaginable. Just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah,
and how the war.
Yeah, Bourbon Street, as we know it today, was just a simple residential and commercial corridor. There was no night clubbing on Bourbon Street. However, there was a party district called the Tango Belt, which was right outside of Storyville. Storyville, remember, was the legal prostitution area of New Orleans, and the Champs-Élysées of Storyville was Basin Street. But it was about a 20-block area that was legally set up by the city council to allow for the legalization of prostitution. Actually, technically, prostitution was disallowed everywhere but Storyville. So that's the way the ordinance was written. But Bourbon Street was really a simple residential street. In fact, Mayor Berman lived on the corner of Bourbon and St. Philip Street when he was young. So the Tango Belt, which is where Iberville and Bienville Street is located now, that was an area of a lot of salacious activity. even outside of Storyville.
And why did Storyville close?
The military closed it down because of the temptation that it provided for servicemen. And again, they were worried about VD. It wasn't really done for ideological reasons. It was done because of the problem of venereal disease that was rampant in the French and British armies overseas, and they didn't want that to happen. So you had to liquor had to be sold 5 miles away from any military containment, and Storyville as well was verboten for servicemen. What interesting story is that the servicemen still got around this by when they would come into town to visit some of these brothels, they would rent civilian clothes and go into Storyville so they wouldn't be identified as servicemen. And Mayor Berman tried his best to keep Storyville open. He actually went to Washington to try to lobby Newton Baker, who was the Secretary of War, to allow Storyville to continue, because he knew that Berman knew that Storyville was an economic bolster for the city. Lots of people from all over the country and even internationally came to New Orleans for the purpose of visiting Storyville. And he didn't want that to end, but his lobbying efforts fell apart.
And Brian, if anybody wants to pre-order your book, could you tell us, how they could do that?
Yeah. Unfortunately, the book is not available until September. I don't even have a copy, but you can pre-order it by going through the normal channels. Amazon has it, Barnes & Noble has it, so you can get it. Eventually, you'll get it in September.
Okay, so it's Whiskey, Women, and War by Brian Altobello. And one other thing, a friend of the show, Murphy Whitman, we hear that Murphy's making a career change and you're his history coach. Is that right?
That is correct.
That is
correct. He's going to be great.
Murphy holds the record as a flag football quarterback for throwing for almost like 400,000 yards. I think that's like 30 times around the world. So I think he may be retiring.
He's a great athlete.
Yeah,
he's still flinging it.
He's still playing. You know what he used to do when he was in college? Well, when he graduated, he used to sign up for 3 hours at LSU so he could play in flag football and drop to class, but he still play flag football in Baton Rouge. So there you go. So his record may not be legitimate based on those type of things. So, well, Brian, thanks for calling in. I appreciate the perspective you gave us on 4th of July, and we wish you best of luck on your new book. And you're a fantastic history teacher, and a lot of people at De La Salle who were in school with me think the same thing. So I thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Doug.
All right. Let's go to break. Doug Sunseri, Albert Nicaud, your weekend lawyers, all things legal. We'll be right back after this brief timeout.
Dealing with adversity and finding ways to unify and overcome it will always be part of our future. The new season of Hope Through History, a documentary podcast presentation from C13.
Am I what? I'm hearing everything fine.
Written and narrated by me, John Nicaud, features moments in our nation's past when we faced challenges as a country and as a world. Listen and follow Season 2 of Hope Through History, available now wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm former NBA player Don Chaney. For years, I had carpal tunnel syndrome and joint pain.
Okay, you have just a little over 5 minutes until top of the hour.
Turns out I had heart failure caused by hereditary transthyretin amyloid cardiomyopathy, or ATTR-CM, a rare, life-threatening disease underdiagnosed in African Americans. If you're African American and over 50 with heart failure experiencing unresolved symptoms, talk to your doctor or visit DonKnowsHisHeart.com.
Brought to you by Pfizer.
Let Shortstop Po' Boys handle the food for your July 4th party. Shortstop Po' Boys encourages you to celebrate with their roast beef, barbecue roast beef, and potato salad, all served by the half gallon, as well as their jambalaya served by the pan. For their full menu, visit ShortstopPo'BoysNO.com. Now hiring.
This year, give her what she really wants. Pearls, emeralds, sapphires, rubies, or those famous Oakland Heart diamonds. Rings, bracelets, earrings, and necklaces. Finer jewelry at the best possible prices. Oakland Heart Jewelers on Metairie Road.
I struggled with symptoms like frequent gas and stomach pain for years.
I was bloated all the time with daily diarrhea.
At first, I thought it was what I was eating.
I kept thinking it was stomach issues.
So I did my research and talked to my doctor, and we finally uncovered the truth.
It was actually EPI. Exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI, is a condition where your pancreas is unable to help break down your food.
It can lead to symptoms like diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, unexplained weight loss, and oily stools.
And EPI symptoms can be confused with those of other common digestive conditions, like irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's, and celiac disease.
So getting to the right diagnosis meant being more open with my doctor about the severity of my symptoms and how often they were happening.
But there's good news. EPI is manageable, so don't wait any longer. Use the symptom checker at identifyepi.com and schedule a visit or call with your doctor to ask, could I have EPI?
Sponsored by AbbVie.
Now, more All Things Legal, underwritten by Nicaud and Sunseri Law Firm. All advice given and opinions shared are solely those of attorneys Albert Nicaud and Doug Sunseri. Back to WWL.
Hey, we're back. Doug Sunseri, Albert Nicaud, your weekend lawyers, all things legal. Thanks to Brian Bell talking about 4th of July and a little bit about New Orleans after World War I. Albert, what struck me in his interview was that the signers, the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence, if they lose the war, they're dead.
They're dead.
And, and the fact is, we wouldn't be, we would be, I don't know what we'd be, but we would not be America as we know it if they didn't sign it. And, I think, one thing, the bravery of how many people today would put their life on the line for a system of government?
Yeah. Well, it just has to be, it has to be to the point where, you've lost your freedoms, and you've lost your freedom of speech. You've lost your, anything that you want to have to make your life better, that opportunity. And the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? You don't have a right to happiness, you have the right to pursue it. And, you lose that, and you never know what that brings out in people.
And I think one of the things too I talked about is, there's a lot of criticism there saying a lot of the people who signed the Declaration of Independence were, slave owners and all that sort of thing. But those ideals in the Declaration of Independence were ideals that were set in order to eventually adhere to in the effectuation of repealing of slavery, and ultimately for the next 100 years in trying to repeal Jim Crow, because it set an ideal that hadn't been met in all ways, but it did set the ideal and set the target so that we could get to America in a place where, we could hopefully be a colorblind society.
Right. Yeah. These guys were clearly patriots. I mean, they were clearly fighting for what they believed in, and what they believed in was a good cause, is a government for the people, by the people, and not to be run by a handful of tyrants in England or a handful of tyrants in Washington, D.C. With the states, people live in certain states mostly because they want to live in that state, and that's where they grew up. That's where the geography of the United States is so vast that it's almost like if you go to Europe, it's like the different states there. They have such vastly different cultures. There are different cultures in Louisiana than there are in Iowa. There are different cultures in Louisiana than there are in New York. And so, people need to have that freedom from a state by state basis to live how they want to live, and govern themselves how they want to govern themselves, and not be dictated to by the all powerful supreme being that is the United States. So, hopefully we can get back to more of the republic that this country should be, where the states have more say so in what goes on, and it's not strictly give us your money in Washington and we'll tell you what to do with it, and we'll do whatever we want with it.
Well, that was one of setting up the states, was the fact that you could move to a state that more reflects your values.
Right.
In that, people have different values, and they could gravitate to those states that reflect their values, and also incorporate that in their local school boards, local government, and say, hey, this is, the values of this community, and this is, which may be different. Like we have different values in the East Coast and the left coast, Northeast, United States. And so, as far as even in our state, there's different values between the Bayou, different values in New Orleans and North Louisiana. And that was the brilliance of this, is to have, a one republic, but allow also our different values to coexist in a natural way, rather than having Washington tell everybody have to be, who they ought to be, how they ought to be, and how they ought to think about things.
Right. Yeah, it was an ingenious system of government, and and it's always a constant struggle to maintain that, and what everybody's interpretation of that is. But at the end of the day, it's about freedom, and it's about freedom to agree with you or not agree with you.
And it's also
opinion.
It's also the freedom to succeed, and also the freedom to fail. And you have that opportunity to to try things, do things, and sometimes you're successful, sometimes you're failing, and that because people want to like China has 1 billion people in their in their country, but they're not the strongest economy because their people aren't allowed to gravitate to what their gifts are. In other words, you might have accountants, running, farmers, and you might have farmers, administrators in the government. You're not able to go to your, use your talents in a way that would give you the best opportunity. So, we're very blessed to live in the United States, and this is
I have a quick China story for after the break. Yeah, it's very interesting.
All right, we'll probably get to law after for the next hour, so stay tuned. All things legal, national news, local news. We're back for hour number 2. We'll see you in about 10 minutes.
News, talk, and sports that hit home. 870 AM WWL New Orleans, 105.3 WWL FM and HD1 Kenner New Orleans, and Odyssey Station.
This is CBS News on the Hour, your home for original reporting.
I'm Lisa Mateo. Demolition crews move into the side of a collapsed building in southern Florida. This is a tropical storm approaches. WFOR TV's Jessica Vallejo is in Surfside.
Search and rescue has been paused as they prepare to demolish the remaining structure that's still standing because there's many worries that the strong winds and rain will impact that structure.
The National Hurricane Center's John Cangigliosi says Tropical Storm Elsa will not have the same deadly impact as it did when it tore through the Caribbean.
Our forecast is for it to not break up because we don't think it'll have a tremendous amount of land interaction.
In Washington state, dry conditions have prompted some areas to temporarily ban an Independence Day tradition. Mercer Island Deputy Fire Chief Mike Mandela says it poses a strong fire danger.
We gather from 31 years of data, and this particular year we're in the 95th percentile for that risk.
A coronavirus strain has changed the plans of some Americans this weekend.
Putting a damper on the holiday spirit.
We're going to just kind of stay at home due to the virus.
The Delta variant in Arkansas, Utah, and Missouri now makes up more than 50% of cases.
CBS's Lilia Luciano. A new study says women of color are more at risk when COVID-19 eviction protections end. CBS's Allison Keyes has the story.
The pandemic is still disproportionately impacting women.
In May of this year, the National Women's Law Center Sarah Hassner says
14.6% of women who rent reported they were behind on their rent payment.
Hassner says many women of color also had trouble finding enough to eat in the past week.
An armed standoff on I-95 in Massachusetts ends with 11 people in custody. More from WBZ TV's Suzanne Sawville.
The men were apparently traveling for some kind of training when police spotted them in the breakdown lane on 95 North.
11 armed individuals on an interstate highway at 2 a.m. certainly raises concerns.
All 11 men finally surrendered to police. It's uncertain if they'll face any federal charges.
About 8.5 million pounds of Tyson chicken has been recalled because of a possible listeria contamination. More from KOIN TV's Wayne Haverly.
These products are sold frozen. They were produced between late December and early April. These were shipped nationwide to grocery stores, restaurants, schools.
In Los Angeles.
If you don't like it, go to a different business. Don't harass them.
Protests after a woman complained about a transgender woman in the female section of the spa. The spa supported the transgender woman, saying that it does not discriminate. And overseas, at least 31 people were killed after a military plane crashed while landing in a southern province of the Philippines. 50 were rescued. This is CBS News.
Get CBS News Radio on the Odyssey app. All the audio that matters to you is on Odyssey. News, music, sports, and podcasts. Download the Odyssey app today.
Jay Farner here, CEO of Rocket Mortgage and Rocket Companies. Last year, we saw historically low mortgage interest rates. What you may not know is that interest rates are already starting to increase, and it's likely that trend is only going to continue. Our team of experts is standing by to help you save before rates go up. Don't look back and wish that you had taken action. Call 833-8ROCKET or visit rocketmortgage.com. Rocket.
Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender licensed in all 50 states and MLSConsumerAccess.org number 3030.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of My Pillow, here to tell you about my Giza Dream bed sheets. The long staple cotton makes my Giza Dream sheets ultra soft and durable. They come with my 60-day money-back guarantee and a 10-year warranty. And now you can get the best sheets ever for the best price ever. When you buy one of my Giza Dream bed sheet sets, you'll get another one absolutely free.
Go to mypillow.com and click on the radio listener square and use promo code SKY, S-K-Y, for this amazing special.
WWL First News. I'm Tom Perumian on your official weather station, WWL AM, FM, and .com.
Starting off warm and humid and dry in a few areas, but once again, rain chances remain high. Scattered showers throughout the afternoon. Not everybody's going to see them, and it will get heavy in a few spots, which may lead to flooding in low-lying areas. It will get hot, temperatures climbing into the lower 90s.
Your local weather expert, WWL TV meteorologist, Michelle Morgan. It is the 4th of July, and if the weather holds out, there will be a go-forth on the river tonight. WWL TV's Paul Dudley fills us in.
Well, New Orleans Go Forth on the River Fireworks Show will be taking place tonight. The tradition had been canceled, but actor Will Smith, of course, stepped up to help. He put up $100,000 after learning there was no funding for the show this year. Smith paid it in full just 5 days ago. Riverfront Marketing Group says the planning that usually takes months had to come together in just 72 hours.
Then to have the city and the Coast Guard and the fire department jump in to assist with this was phenomenal too. You know, government just doesn't move fast. But in this case, with this very generous gift by Will Smith, things just fell into place, and now it's going to happen.
Sounds like a lot of fun. That show starts tonight at 9 o'clock. The best places to watch are on the Algiers Levee or the New Orleans Riverfront from Canal Street to Jack's Brewery.
With all the wind and rains lately, it's good to know netting is going up around the beleaguered Plaza Tower. WWL TV's Katie Moore reports.
An update on the old Plaza Tower building. It's been more than a month since strong winds blew pieces of debris off that blighted skyscraper. Well, crews have started wrapping the building in netting to try and catch any other pieces that might fall. Once that's complete and the building is more secure, officials hope to reopen more of those surrounding streets.
Here's Tim Zimmer with WWL Sports.
With 23 days to go until the Black and Gold officially starts training camp, analysts and media outlets from all over will be breaking down this Saints roster each day. And one of those analysts, WWL, NFL, and college football analyst Mike Detillier, thinks that this linebacker core could be the ones to watch, particularly with the young talent of Pete Warner and Zach Bond.
So you got two young linebackers here. The only linebacker that's got anything on the resume is Demario Davis. So my concern would be, are the two guys ready to go? And hoping that maybe Quan Alexander, who is coming off of an Achilles injury, that maybe you could bring him back for a one-year deal.
According to OverTheCap.com, the Saints currently have about $11 million in cap space to play with if they decide to bring in another free agent. And with it being the 4th of July, one of America's greatest competitors, Joey Chestnut, defends his title at Coney Island in the Nathan's Hot Dog Eating Competition today. Chestnut has won 5 straight mustard belts and is trying to break his record of 75 hot dogs in 10 minutes in last year's contest. Tim Zimmer, WWL Sports.
Now, your Garcia Roofing forecast on WWL.
Another steamy day across southeast Louisiana for your 4th of July. Rain chances remain moderate. It will be numerous in a few areas. A few isolated thunderstorms are possible, and a few of those showers are expected to produce heavy rain, which may lead to flooding in low-lying areas. Temperatures are expected to climb into the lower 90s, and tonight, mostly cloudy conditions, a few spotty showers, but looking much drier for any fireworks. As we start off the work week, hot and humid, temperatures climbing into the lower 90s, but your typical summer pattern where scattered showers are likely, quick heavy downpours, and isolated thunderstorms. From your Weather Expert Forecast Center, I'm WWL-TV meteorologist Michelle Morgan.
And I'm Tom Perumian, WWL First News.
From WWL, the news talk sports powerhouse of the Gulf South, it's All Things Legal with Doug Sunseri and Albert Nicaud. Underwritten by Nicaud and Sunseri Law Firm. Join us on the Oakland Heart Jewelers Talk and Text line, 504-260-1870, or connect anytime, anywhere on the Odyssey app. Now, to our Jefferson Financial Federal Credit Union studios in the heart of New Orleans, here are attorneys Albert Nicaud and Doug Sunseri.
Hey, we're back. Doug Sunseri, Albert Nicaud, your weekend lawyers, all things legal, back for hour number 2. And Albert, also on the 4th of July, Joey Chestnut is defending his championship for eating 75. I think he's won several times, about 5 years in a row. 75 hot dogs in 10 minutes. And I will have to tell you, back in my Lakeshore Playground days, did you know Moose Markey? Did I lose Albert? Well, I had, let's see, where are you, Albert? Oh, hey, I got you. Yeah, there you go, Albert.
There we go.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, Moose Markey actually ended up joining PKT at UNO. Yeah, he was quite the legend.
Yeah, he's been gone for a while, but
yes,
I would say that for anybody from Bucktown who knew Moose or Lakeshore Playground, I did see him eat 40 crystals in about 5 or 6 minutes.
For a little crystal burger?
Yeah, a little crystal burger. So I would say, just in the memory of Moose Markey, that I think he could have gave Joey Chestnut a run. So
yeah. So real quick, we were talking about China, right before the break, and I have a really interesting China story. As you know, if you're a listener to the show, I was out a couple of weeks in June. We were went to Croatia, and Croatia essentially spans the upper west coast of the Adriatic. Well, it's the west coast, but it's on the eastern side of the Adriatic. And except for about a little 5-mile area of Bosnia-Herzegovina, which you have to, if you take that highway, you have to cross into Bosnia, go through a checkpoint, go through, and then 5 miles later, you're getting another checkpoint to go into Croatia and vice versa on coming the other direction. So what the Croatians have decided to do is build a bridge. There's an island or a piece of land that kind of juts out. So they're going to build a bridge and bypass that little 5 mile area. And as we were coming back down that road to head back to Dubrovnik, there's this gigantic bridge. It looks like the Golden Gate Bridge. It's all these big cables and spans and everything else. It's a tremendous undertaking. And so the driver that was driving our van back, we're talking to him about it. He said, and he explained the whole issue with, bypassing Bosnia. And he said, yeah, they put it out. And he said, the Chinese are building it. And he said, they came here, and he said, they brought hundreds and hundreds of workers. They built a little city for them. They've got all their food. He said, but in their bunks, they're working round the clock, 24 hours a day. They have three crews, and they each work 8-hour days, and they share bunks. So in other words, I would finish working, I'll go sleep in a bunk. The guy that was just in the bunk gets up and he goes to work. And it's just, and so 3 people share one bunk and they sleep in it at different time. And it's amazing. And he said the only product that we are selling to them is rice. But everything else, he said they brought with them. They're shipping in their own food. They're doing this, and I mean, you can't think they're paying them $40 an hour labor to do that work, right? So you were talking earlier about what your lot in life is in China, and this is what happens with when you have that type of communist dictator country. And you go in and you work slave working hours, slave labor, and it's a horrible existence for those people.
That's a far cry from stomping your feet because your student loans don't get forgiven by the government.
Yeah, right. There's the other extreme, right?
So yeah, no, we're very blessed, and I think you coming back from Croatia, the Croatian people were under communism for or they were under probably every bad form of government throughout their history.
Right.
Right.
They've been taken over by just about everyone.
And that in the last 20 years is the first time they're experiencing a democratic form of government, and they're very appreciative of it. They just relish in it, and they guard that freedom, very judiciously, and they're very proud of it.
Absolutely. We went to mass, and it's standing room only outside with speakers because they almost lost their ability to worship, and so just something as that we take so much for granted here. We're leaving for 11 o'clock mass, after the show, right? And so that opportunity to worship, they almost lost it. And of course, then when you go to Dubrovnik, they're such a Catholic Christian city. In the old city, where much of Game of Thrones was filmed, there are 13 different churches there. You can walk the entire wall. I think it's 2 miles. So in this 2 mile radius, there's 13 churches, and it's just a great place. I mean, there's no crime. People are friendly. You can eat off the sidewalks. They're so clean. And of course the water's crystal blue and green, and it's quite the deal. And I can see why so many countries wanted that land, right? Because it was just such a idyllic place. I'm sure over the years, just looking out onto the Adriatic.
Right, and a lot of people are not. I mean, they struggle financially. They work hard, but I think they enjoy the opportunity.
Absolutely.
To have some upward mobility and to
no question.
And just given the opportunity to do that.
And we were taking that same highway, right? It was 2 years ago that I went, and there were just vineyards up and down the mountains. And I said, I don't remember this from the trip we took before that. And Miss Clara Satanovich, owns Drago's, she was, on the bus with us, and she said, they've opened up a lot of things for free enterprise. And so now people can have their own wineries, they can sell their own products. And so they're making use of every bit of their land and growing grapes, growing olives, and it's wonderful.
I guess we'll talk a little history. I guess we'll get to law. But one little anecdote I want to talk about was there, when the Pilgrims came to the United States, and there's a lot of good history, bad history, and in between that is in connection with that. But one of the things that was interesting is when the Pilgrims first came over, they used to collectively farm together, whereas everybody would farm the same piece of land, and they basically starved that first couple of years. And then they got the idea of saying, you know what, instead of us collectively farming and us collectively, eating off the land, we're going to give each person their own plot of land and let them farm it and let them, live and die with, their results.
Right.
And amazingly, when they gave each person their own collective property to work by themselves, they ate a lot better. And that just tells you a little bit about human nature is, if it's a collective situation, like socialism and communism, you know, your ingenuity, your desire to work hard, you know,
Right.
dissipates. Whereas if you have your own little lot and your own little piece of property, and then you understand that you are going to benefit directly by the fruits of your hard work and your success, you just have a different attitude toward it.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I think that little anecdote was the prescription as to why the United States became this, it's got its problems, but it's the best country in the history of mankind. And that's why we prospered in such a short period of time to be such a world power and have so much influence over the world. And now, the question we have right now, are we going to go back to collectivism, which had the pilgrims almost starve, or are we going to go back to, with, more of a little bit of, with the, opportunity with a nice safety net for, the people who have difficulty, have needed. So just very interesting history. You always one generation away from losing your freedom, and that's what we have to remember on this 4th of July.
Absolutely.
That we're just one generation away from losing it, so we should celebrate it. We shouldn't, and it's very interesting. The little lady who turned her back on the American flag, during the when she was going for the Olympics trials. When she turned her back to the United States, which country was she facing? Which country is she saying, I wish I was in, or we would be more like? Whether you want to turn your back or not, I'm not going to get into that. But what country were you facing where you thought we should be like? Somebody tell me, tell me what country you would rather be in. If you take the fences and the borders out, you don't see people running from the United States to go into other countries. They all want to come here.
Sure.
It's a very interesting question that should be asked, which is not. And I'd like to hear the answer. All right, let's go to break. Doug Sunseri, Albert Nicaud, your weekend lawyers, all things legal. We'll be right back after this brief time out.
Many callers, huh?
Odyssey is the best way to power your day, giving you so many ways to stay connected to all the audio that matters to you, anywhere you are. At home, sit back and listen to Odyssey on your favorite home entertainment devices like Roku and Chromecast. And you can ask Alexa or Google to play your station hands-free. Listen in your car with the Waze app, Apple CarPlay, and more to stay connected on the go. Get your favorites on AUDACY. Discover a universe of audio everywhere. Odyssey.
Have you wanted to speak a new language but thought it'd be too difficult or take too much time? Then try Babbel. Whether you want to learn Spanish for future travel plans, French to connect with extended family, or maybe German to land a new job, Babbel works because it's built around real life. It teaches you everyday practical conversations that you'll actually use. All you need is 15 minutes a day, and you'll be on your way to confidently speaking a new language in just a few weeks. Babbel is designed by real language experts using a modern, conversation-based technique that makes learning fun, engaging, and best of all, memorable. It starts by teaching you words and phrases. Then sentences gradually get more complex. Soon you're practicing short conversations about real-life topics. And with 14 languages to choose from and lesson topics like travel, business, relationships, and more, you'll be sure to learn what matters most to you. Babbel. Language for life. Learn a new language with ease. Go to Babbel.com to try for free. That's Babbel.com. Babbel.com.
At Progressive, we're making things even easier. We'll help you bundle your home and car insurance together so you can save on both. Learn more at Progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE.
Jason Dornack here for Dornack's Food Center. The Dornack family and employees wish all a happy and safe 4th of July. We're open today until 5 p.m. Come on in, get grilling, sip and save.
At Oakwood Heart Jewelers, you'll find that perfect gift that expresses your love. Spectacular creations in pearls, emeralds, sapphires, rubies, or those famous Oakwood Heart diamonds that stand out from all the rest. Choose from a vast selection of rings, bracelets, earrings, and necklaces like no other. Our commitment for creating breathtaking jewelry right here in our Metairie Road store is not only rare, it's the very reason we can bring you the best for less. Your satisfaction means everything to us at Oakwood Heart Jewelers. Beautiful in more ways than one.
Where do you go when you want to sell your old gold jewelry?
CausewayCoinCo.com.
All things legal with Doug Sunseri and Albert Nicaud on WWL and Odyssey Station. Connect now on the Oakland Hart Jewelers Talk and Text line, 504-260-1870.
Hey, we're back. Doug Sunseri, Albert Nicaud, you weekend lawyers, all things legal. I guess we keep saying before we get to law, we'll talk about this. But we want to talk a little bit about this. The Pelicans need a new coach. And you know who would be a wonderful coach?
Who's
Coach
that?
Monty Williams. Oh, I forgot. We had him before. He's in the NBA Finals, and we let him go. I'm very happy for Monty Williams. I'm gonna watch this NBA Final because LeBron James is not in it. Because when he's in it, I just personally don't really. Or if he's in it, I usually pull for him to lose. But,
yes.
So,
well, number two, Drew Holiday's, in it, and Chris Paul. So, two of my favorite players are going to compete against each other. So either one who wins, I'll be happy.
Yeah, so I think it'll be great. And the newness of it, you have a whole new breed of – and Milwaukee was expected to be in the top four in the Eastern Conference, but Phoenix was actually preseason ranked below the Pelicans, which, they were not expected to even make the playoffs, and they thought they would be a bottom-tier team. So just goes to show you now that in the NBA you do have some upward mobility if you put a few pieces in place. And, listening to the issues regarding Stan Van Gundy and David Griffin sound like that was a train wreck. And, you have to put that on the general manager because he hired someone who obviously had different expectations as to what his role would be and philosophy. So, I think you got one more, I would say that Griffin has been very indecisive as to the identity of the Pelicans and what direction they're going to go into. And I would probably think he was on a short leash because you got the best player in the NBA draft in the last 10 years, and you have not made significant progress. So, I guess we'll see with that. And the Saints are only 23 days from training camp, so it's going to be here before you know it. And also, too, I was very happy to watch Mississippi State win the national championship. Not their rival LSU, I get that, but it was great to see the town of Starkville.
Oh, absolutely.
Celebrate because it's great to have a good southern small town with very, very good people, very loyal people, very hardworking people. Get some recognition and positive recognition, especially from to watch that and all that unbridled joy and that identity that they have from that. It was just great to watch. And,
right.
Congratulations to
Lance Lashardi was on our show last week. He's a big baseball guy, and he was saying that in Starkville, baseball is king over any other sport. They would prefer a national championship in baseball than in football to win the SEC championship over Alabama. They would much prefer baseball. That baseball is sold out. It's one of those programs that gets so much focus and so much attention from the university. And finally, they've had their national championship, first one in any sport ever. And congratulations to them. Great coach.
Yeah,
good team effort.
And then the NCAA did what they could to try to screw up the championship. With the disqualification of North Carolina State, which I think was, the nanny state in action. From what I understand, 4 of these players were vaccinated, and none of them had any symptoms.
Right.
Which you could have 2 shows on that, but that's a travesty. So, and also, who do you think now, as far as the Saints are concerned, who do you think is going to start quarterback? You have
I think Jameis Winston's the guy. No question about it. Doug, we talked about this before, I think, but, there were 12 times in NFL history a quarterback's thrown for over 5,000 yards, and Jameis Winston did it twice. So, he's a guy with all the skills in the world. And if he can master the system and be coached on just a few things, turnovers, that kind of thing, I really think he can bring the Saints to a playoff contention, within a year or two. I really do. I mean, I remember watching him in college, and I'm a real student of the quarterbacks. I always like to watch the guys that can do what I never could really do, right? But he had such great footwork. He has a great throwing motion. It's just he's got all of the physical skills and the technique. And I just think that, like I said, if he could, it's a very complicated system. Drew Brees was there for a long time. He knew what Sean Payton was thinking before he thought it. And so it's going to take him some time, I think, to certainly get to that level. But if he has a pretty good grasp of that complicated offense, I really think he can take us places. They need to get him some help at receiver. They really, could use a couple of more receivers that are the 6'3", 6'5" type of strong, fast receivers that Tampa Bay, for instance, has, or Atlanta did have right before a couple of trades. And so, get him some players that can, or even some speed receivers. You look at Kansas City; they've got 4 receivers that all run a 4.3 40. 4 of them. Speed kills, and I got to tell you, I'm a defensive back, and I got to play Kansas City with a guy like Mahomes that can get the ball to him. I'm nervous. I'm worried that I can't keep up with these guys, and you got to play him in his zone because I can't run with them. So, those are the kind of guys that are out there. And I think if the Saints can find 1 or 2 more, it's not a ton of players, but just 1 or 2 more to give that advantage, offensively look good. And, of course, they just spent a buttload of money on Ramczyk.
Right. Yeah.
What do you think about that, Doug? That's a ton of money for a right tackle.
What they're doing is they're projecting what the market will be in 4 or 5 years. And what they're projecting is by year 3, 4, and 5, that whatever they're going to pay Ramczyk is below the market value for an all-pro offensive tackle. They're guaranteed $60 million. Also, too, I think the philosophy with the team is if you shore up the offensive line and to an extent a little bit of the defensive line, that you can plug and play people behind them.
Everybody gets better. No question about it.
So I think that's their emphasis. And, as far as bookends are concerned, if you got the bookends, you got McCoy in the middle, you got a little flexibility with the guards. I think that's the framework that they believe in. But I have to confess this, and we talked about it when they drafted Ramczyk. I was like, what are they doing? If you should pick a lot of wide receivers. Someone who was flamboyant or more of a sexy pick. And it turned out to be every time. It seems like every time I saw to question the Saints on their draft, they proved me wrong. The only thing I do question though is they not question, but they have a philosophy of trading up and getting rid of picks, but they seem to hit. So they got the history. But I think it's probably a good thing, and they would rather have signed someone in house because if you sign a free agent, you're going to have to overpay. So I think the economic philosophy is it's cheaper to sign someone, a superstar in-house, than it is to go out in the market and get one.
And I've never been a fan of the free agent market because, you end up getting these players that have made their all-pro team, 2-3 years in a row. They've got allegiance to the team that they've kind of come out and started playing for initially. And now all of a sudden they're going to finish out their twilight years with the Saints. And that's happened over and over again. And they just don't seem to perform as well as in those prime years. So it's better to take, like you said, take a chance on them on the front end. And if they don't work out, you didn't pay a lot of money for them, you didn't lose a whole lot. But if they do pan out, then you get those players in their prime years searching for a contract.
Also, what you're getting. Even though you sign a free agent and he's great. You don't know exactly what you're getting. You don't know what he's like inside the building. You don't know, like, maybe some of his personal habits that may be counterproductive to their career. That's, there's things you don't know about that player. You think, you get as much information, but after you've been with the player for 5 years, you pretty much know him in and out, and you know what you're dealing with, and there's a less unknown. And when you're investing $90 million in a particular player, there's a lot less unknown about that investment as opposed to someone like Antonio Gibson or Antonio, the one Pittsburgh, the wide receiver, Antonio Gibson.
Right.
Antonio Brown, he was signed as a free agent, and he turned out to be a head case, and he always was.
Right.
It didn't manifest until that second contract, or there was signs that he was. I'm saying head case. He was not a stable player. And so, that those are the kind of risks that you take that would be less likely if you sign someone in-house. And that's always been the Saints' philosophy is, to get their core players that they've drafted tied up, and then draft and plug the rest of them in.
Well, that's always been Green Bay's method of success. They usually have very few players that they've gotten from somewhere else.
Patriots.
Yeah.
Patriots.
Yeah.
Now, what Patriots were different from the Saints is they would trade down, get multiple picks,
right,
and use quantity to plug and play. And they found some great players in Julian Edelman, and a lot of players that and they plug and play around the superstar Tom Brady. Now, one last thing I want to say about Jameis Winston is here's the benefit. He came out as a junior. He's got 5 years of experience under Tampa. In other words, he took his hits under Tampa. He learned everything because there's nothing like experience. And so now we're getting him as a finished product. We didn't have to go through that process where he had trial and error, rookie mistakes, second, third year mistakes. He is more of a finished product that he has the benefit of that experience behind him, but we didn't have to suffer the consequences of that. And then we got him on the cheap last year.
Right.
So,
are they paying him more this year? How did that work?
Yeah, they're paying him more. It's very incentive-laden contract, but now he's after 6 years, you've pretty much seen it all, and you're more of a finished product. So you don't have to grow up with him. You get the I guess more of the finished product. And some quarterbacks have had great second acts. Jim Plunkett was one. Back the old guys, and then recently Randall Cunningham. He had an up and down career.
Look at Brett Favre. Brett
Favre was he was in Atlanta 1 year, and then so a lot of quarterbacks who have a second act have a great potential. So it's the unknown will be interesting, and so we're 23 days away from camp, so it's going to come quick. All right, let's go to a break. We might talk law in the last 40 minutes.
Hey, we got any calls? We'll talk law, right?
So 1-870. So
if you want to shut us up, give us a call.
That's right. So 1-870. So we'll be right back after this brief time out.
When staying informed is non-negotiable.
I need weather, the news,
the local stuff, and being connected is a must.
24-hour news cycle. Kept me informed what's going on.
You're never more than one touch away from...
Okay, I've got Vernon from Metairie who wants to talk about homeowners insurance.
Anywhere. From your home to the office, from
there you go.
The beach. Staying informed this summer is easy with the Odyssey app. I can do it on my phone.
Anywhere at any time.
Download it today and stream WWL anytime.
Diabetes, high blood pressure, anxiety meds, everyone's on them. If you're a 50-year-old male, maybe a bit porky, and you may even have type 2 diabetes, $1 million of term insurance may only cost you about $200 a month. Call Term Provider. Speak with Big Lou at 800-200-1966. Big Lou will find a term life policy for you even if you have type 2 diabetes, are overweight, or have high blood pressure.
Term Providers help thousands of people like you who think they can't afford term life insurance. To buy $1 million of affordable term life for you, all you need to do is call Big Lou at 800-200-1966. Lou will make sure the scales are tipped in your favor. Call 800-200-1966. Big Lou will answer your call and work to fit you into a term life policy that you can afford. Remember, Big Lou's like you. He's on meds, too. Call 800-200-1966. 800-200-1966.
I'm former NBA player Don Chaney. For years, I had carpal tunnel syndrome and joint pain. Then I started having heart-related symptoms like fatigue and palpitations. Turns out I had heart failure caused by hereditary transthyretin amyloid cardiomyopathy, or ATTR-CM, a rare, life-threatening disease underdiagnosed in African Americans. If you're African American and over 50 with heart failure experiencing unresolved symptoms, talk to your doctor or visit DonKnowsHisHeart.com.
Brought to you by Pfizer.
I struggled with symptoms like frequent gas and stomach pain for years.
I was bloated all the time with daily diarrhea.
At first, I thought it was what I was eating.
I kept thinking it was stomach issues.
So I did my research and talked to my doctor, and we finally uncovered the truth.
It was actually EPI. Exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI, is a condition where your pancreas is unable to help break down your food.
It can lead to symptoms like diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, unexplained weight loss, and oily stools.
And EPI symptoms can be confused with those of other common digestive conditions, like irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's, and celiac disease.
So getting to the right diagnosis meant being more open with my doctor about the severity of my symptoms and how often they were happening.
But there's good news. EPI is manageable, so don't wait any longer. Use the symptom checker at identifyepi.com and schedule a visit or call with your doctor to ask, could I have EPI?
Sponsored by AbbVie.
Dealing with adversity and finding ways to unify and overcome it will always be part of our future.
Okay, going live right after this.
All right. A documentary podcast presentation from C13 Originals in association with the History Channel. Written and narrated by me, John Nicaud. Features moments in our nation's past when we faced challenges as a country and as a world. Listen and follow Season 2 of Hope Through History. Available now wherever you get your podcasts.
All things legal on WWL. Consult with Nicaud and Sunseri now on the Oakland Hart Jewelers Talk and Text line, 504-260-1870. And don't forget to rewind on the Odyssey app.
Hey, we're back. Doug Sunseri, Albert Nicaud, your weekend lawyer, and all things legal. You can also call us at law firm 504-837-1304, 504-837-1304 on the North Shore, God's Country, Mandeville, 985-624-9697. Let's go to phone lines. Let's go to Vernon. Hey, Vernon, you and all things legal with Doug Sunseri and Albert Nicaud.
So we've been shopping around for a condo, and the HOA fees just greatly vary, and most of them have the same amenities like a pool, and so I was just curious, is there anything, and I know this is more of a real estate question, but I'm sure you all deal with this. Is there anything when you're looking for a condo and dealing with an homeowners association, like you want to be aware of when it comes to HOA fees? That's my first question. My second question is, in your all's experience, do HOA fees typically go up? Can they ever go down? And I will listen off the air. Thank you all so much.
Okay.
Well, all right, I appreciate your call. We represent a lot of homeowners associations. We also represent individuals who have claims against their associations, whether it's a townhome, whether it's a neighborhood homeowners association, whether it's a condo. So what you want to do is ask around. You want to, if at all possible, go visit over there and knock on a couple of doors. I know it sounds kind of silly, but you want to get some people's input on what's going on, how responsive the board is, what those dues are, what they cover, and do they ever go down? I've never seen it. I think once the homeowners association sets a number, and the homeowners agree to it, or don't vote them out of office, then it's rarely that it ever goes down. Much like any tax that you see that the legislature might impose or the government might impose. But yeah, so you want to find that out. And when you buy, they are supposed to give you the most recent version of the bylaws and declarations so you can see what the rules are, what the voting rights are. You want to kind of peruse through that. You want to see what the rules and regulations are regarding pets, regarding, storage, regarding parking, all of these kinds of things. Keep in mind, you're sharing walls with people and you're sharing a little community with people. And, it's sometimes, and listen, from the other side of it, from the homeowners boards and the condo boards, it's a thankless job. They're not getting paid. They don't get a per diem. They don't get anything for their time and effort and everything else. And so, it's kind of a natural thing for sometimes what they'll do is they'll take a liberty here or two. They'll make their little area of the street nicer, or they'll, have something, to do with their condo unit. They'll fix their balcony first or something along those for the limited common areas, right? But find out about all those things if you can. Get the word. Hey, is this a good association? What do you think? Is it peaceful? Is there a lot of dispute? Is there a lot of right now I own a unit at a condo by the lakefront that I rent out, and there's a little discord right now, and so we just have to deal with it. I tend to stay out of it. I don't live there. But it's just it happens. It happens frequently.
One thing about condos, Florida is find out if you can lease them out.
Well, of course, of course.
That's a lot of locally with condo associations, and with condos is short-term rentals and that sort of thing. So
yes.
All right, and all right. Also, I have a question for you. I sort of came across this, and it's sort of I want to rack your brain on this. We're in hurricane season, and hopefully, as a community, we're not going to be filing mass claims on our homeowners policies and flood policies, which would mean we didn't have a hurricane. But in a particular situation, let's say if they had a situation where you had a pest control agency that oversprayed on a house, and they had an environmental damage that you had to do remediation, and they have to be out the house for a month. Is that a claim that you can assert against your homeowner's policy? And what do you have to look for?
Well, it depends on what the exclusions might be. There might be an environmental exclusion that covers. So you're gonna have to read the language of the policy carefully. There may be a loss of use provision. In other words, they may not take care of the remediation, but they might take care of the loss of use. They might pay for you to live at a extended stay America, one of those places for a couple of weeks while the remediation's done, but not necessarily pay for the remediation itself. And you got to be careful with those termite contracts too, because within them are limitations of liability, saying that we're not liable for what we do. And so basically that means that unless they are gross wanton and willful negligence, ordinary negligence, you really don't have a claim against them. And so it's written in the contract, it's written in all their contracts. And it's something that's tough to overcome if you're bringing a claim against them. So that's a whole nother side of it. But in terms of your homeowners, you're going to have to see whether or not the environmental exclusion includes that.
All right. Next, got another one you experience a lot. A pipe burst under the slab, and you have damages. What does your homeowners cover that?
Absolutely. And so what they cover, so your policies, your homeowner's policy, even a contractor's general liability policy, for instance, same type of thing. We're going to cover the damages associated with an occurrence, but we're not going to cover the repair work to the damaged item, meaning we're going to go ahead and pay to chip out the beam. If it's a slab, right, there's a beam that circles the perimeter of the house. We're going to chip that out. We're going to dig. We're going to pay for the digging. And, and then that's pretty much it. After that, the replacement of those faulty pipes, they typically will not pay for. So that's something you're going to have to pay the plumber to replace the pipes, put new pipe hangers, meaning the drain pipe, the new drain lines. And they only cover what's underneath the slab. So they're not going to cover the drain from the house to the city's clean out. They're only going to cover what's underneath. So sometimes you'll have trees and roots disrupting those, sometimes it's terracotta pipes, whatever, in the front yard. You're on your own. Now, it's easier to dig the front yard unless it's going under a driveway or a sidewalk, but it's easier to dig the front yard, and it's a less expensive process. But they will pay for the digging and the chipping out of the concrete beam and the replacement of the beam. But they're not going to pay for the pipes and the pipe hangers to be put back.
Okay. Another one. This is now that we might experience in hurricane season. When we had these prior hurricanes, you had a lot of these outfits that were unlicensed that did roof work and did repair. And a lot of the people who did the roof work really weren't roofers. They were just laborers who were given a hammer and nail and say, get up there and start getting wet. Now, let's say you have roof damage after a hurricane or a rain event, and it's determined that the water infiltrated through some defective work that was done on a prior roof installation. Does your homeowners cover that?
Yes, it's going to be a real tough burden to prove. Again, it's not going to pay to replace the roof, but it will pay. It will pay for the damages caused, right? So it's going to be a tough burden to prove. And one way to possibly do that, in other words, prove the difference between the poor workmanship that led to that versus the storm that led to that. One of the best ways to try to prove that is to look at the sheathing underneath. And if the sheathing's rotted, and you might have some rotted, roof rafters, then the defect has been going on for a longer period of time. And of course, you keep in mind, whenever you're suing a contractor, you only have 5 years from the date they completed their work. You can't see, even if you've discovered it, yesterday, if you're more than 5 years out, you cannot sue a contractor beyond 5 years. So, at least try to get a 5-year warranty on labor and materials from a roofer.
And that's why it's good to use a contractor who's been in business, because a warranty or that 5-year period doesn't do you any good if that contractor's in business one day and another.
Yeah, he's out there. He's a storm chaser. And the other thing you want to do if you're doing a roof, make sure they hand nail the roof, that they don't use the nail guns, because quite frequently what happens is the nails will penetrate the shingle too far, and then it loses its strength in adhering to the roof, because it's kind of like if you've ever driven a nail in sheetrock. If you screw it in too far, it'll be kind of loose and wobble back and forth, because it's only holding a slight bit of the sheetrock now, and it's not holding the entire piece. Same thing with the roof. You don't want it, and so if you hand nail it, you have more control over how deep that nail goes into the shingle.
All right, gotta go to our final break. Albert, you giving Paul LaGrange a run for your money. They might get you working on Saturday mornings as well as
There you go. That's just what I want.
All right, let's go to a break. Doug Sunseri, Albert Nicaud, your weekend lawyers. All things legal. We'll be right back after this brief time out.
Your life, your hopes, your passions. These things are none of our business. Your deodorant rash, your favorite cheese, and whatever you were searching for at 1:15 a.m., that's really none of our business. Because your life is private. And unlike other tech companies, we think your internet should be too. Oh, what kind of talk is that? That's none of our business.
Okay, we're going to have about 6 minutes, maybe just a shade over that till the top of the hour.
Privacy.
When we get back,
Simplified.
Let Shortstop Po' Boys handle the food for your July 4th party. Shortstop Po' Boys encourage you to celebrate with their roast beef, barbecue roast beef, and potato salad, all served by the half gallon, as well as their jambalaya served by the pan. For their full menu, visit shortstoppo'boysno.com. Now hiring.
At Oak and Hart, we don't just move diamonds. We move people. Breathtaking diamonds, stunning designs, rings, bracelets, earrings, and necklaces, all at the best possible prices. Simply compare. Oakland Hart Jewelers on Metairie Road.
Hey, New Orleans, we want your stuff. DependableStorage.com.
Enjoy a powerful business upgrade with Dell Technologies Black Friday and July event. Get amazing savings with up to 50% off high-performance computers and tech built for business, and be able to take your office with you with Windows 10 Pro. Plus, get great offers on Dell servers, monitors, docks, and more, all with easy financing options through Dell Financial Services. Call 877-ASK-DELL. That's 877-ASK-DELL, and speak to a Dell Technologies advisor today.
On our first date, we had masks on and kept 6 feet apart. Now, we're a lot closer.
Just like Cliff and Deb, thousands of singles over 50 found their perfect match on Silver Singles last year.
I feel like I'm 20 years old again, and I'm pretty sure she feels the same way.
Rediscover the magic of dating with Silver Singles, the exclusive community for singles over 50. Sign up today and receive daily matches you won't want to miss at silversingles.com/radio. silversingles.com/radio.
Progressive's Home Quote Explorer is changing the way you buy home insurance. Now you can go online, get a custom quote, and save both time and money. Learn more at progressive.com.
All things legal on WWL, AMFM.com, and the Odyssey app. Connect with Doug Sunseri and Albert Nicaud on the Oakland Hart Jewelers Talk and Text line, 504-260-1870.
Hey, we're back. Doug Sunseri, Albert Nicaud, you Weekend Lawyers, all things legal. Our last segment. You can give us a call at law firm at 504-837-1304, 504-837-1304, or North Shore, God's Country in Mandeville at 985-624-9697. You know,
I need to correct you there, actually, because God's Country is technically Covington. Mandeville's all these new subdivisions and stuff. Covington's really God's Country, where I grew up. Not to argue with you.
West St. Hamlin.
Right.
So yeah, where the trains run on time and you get your garbage picked up. You know, that's a beautiful thing.
Just some real easy things, right?
It doesn't flood, so that's a beautiful thing. I was, it's this time of year when you turn on the TV and you turn on, Channel 4 and you see the meteorologist leading the broadcast off with, a hurricane coming off the coast of Africa or in the Caribbean or making its way with all the charts and all the spaghetti models, which incidentally, if you want to know where a hurricane's coming, just call me. I can tell. I can tell you because I've watched it.
You're the Nash Roberts.
I'm all over it. But, as homeowners, it's good. It's probably a good time to take a look at your homeowner's policy right now and sort of maybe just, sort of do a little preparation. Hi, Albert. I mean, what kind of preparation would you recommend?
Well, and always video your contents. It's amazing. People will have $100,000 contents, or maybe even more under their homeowners, not their flood. Flood's the maximum of 100, but on the homeowners, you just look in your closet, and all the different clothing and things you have in the closet, and open drawers and cabinets, and take some videos of things that you have in there. It's like, oh gee whiz, I remember. Now we had this, and this. I forgot we even had that. You think of your big things, your TV, your sofa, and things like that, but you've got a ton of stuff tucked away. So video it all. Do what you can. Make sure your insurance is up to date with the increase in the value of homes and also in the increase in the cost to build a home these days. Make sure you're covered for at least 80%. Usually that's the co-insurance coverage that you're required to have. We talked a little bit about this last week with Greg Masson from Martin Insurance Agency about co-insurance clauses and what that means. But basically, if your home is not insured for 80% of its rebuild value, not the value of the house and the lot, but how much it would cost to actually rebuild the house, then the insurance company is going to reduce your claim. Even if you have replacement cost coverage, they're going to reduce it to the extent that you are underinsured for that, or you have not underinsured for the amount of the coverage. So in other words, if you've got $100,000 to rebuild your house and $80,000 to rebuild your house, but your house is worth $200,000, you don't have 80% of it insured, right? You'd have to have $160,000 in insurance, which you wouldn't have. So they're going to reduce that amount that they pay you by that percentage. So you want to make sure you go over your coverages and make sure that you have enough coverage. And many policies these days have an inflation guard where they'll bump up the liability amounts as things go along, and you can pretty much rely on that in the event that there is a claim down the road. But have your evacuation route plan, your plan together. If you've got your kids coming with you, they may not live in the home anymore, and you want to meet together and make sure there's a place for your pets. I mean, just simple things people pretty much know these days. But, and batten down the hatches, right? If you have shutters, close them. If close your blinds, do all those types of things. Turn off your air conditioning units. We didn't do that in the last storm, Zeta, I think it was, and we didn't turn the units off. The power kept going out. All of a sudden, they clicked the power back onto my street. It was a surge, and it blew out one of these circuit boards in my unit because it tried to kick on too quickly. So, $300 later, I'll never do that again, right?
All right. Well, it's that time of year. All right. Well, Wilma, so what you doing today for our 4th of July?
I'm going to a friend's house. We're going to barbecue, and the typical hot dogs, apple pie. I got my blue and my little flag shorts on. They got the American flags on them. I don't know if you can see them now, but yeah, you probably could have done without that, I'm sure. But but anyway, yeah. So we have a beer or two and celebrate the holiday.
That's it. All right. Well, they'll have fireworks and barbecues, or are you going to make a run at Joey Chestnut? Or are you a hot dog record?
No, I don't think so. I actually had a hot dog yesterday for the first time. I went to a friend's house. It was a birthday party, and they had a Lucky Dog cart.
All right.
And I've never tasted a Lucky Dog sober. Right. It was actually pretty good.
All right.
870 AM WWL New Orleans.
Sorry about that.
105.3 WWL FM and HD1 Kenner, New Orleans. And Odyssey Station.
All right, see you Tuesday.